of coming here and sitting and kind of feeling into the group, and such appreciation for you people. I mean, it always just strikes me, you didn't have to be here. You could be at the UVA football game or somewhere else, Club Med, you know. And so when I come into this environment, and already I can feel the earnestness, the care that you bring, the courage that you bring, especially those of you that are returning, because you know sometimes you might need it. So I want to start out by just honoring that. It's not a trifle that you've organized yourself so that you could come and do this together. It's a special time to come on retreat like this, and it's a very rare event. And it doesn't happen that often, you know, and percentage-wise of the population on this planet. You know, and yeah, mindfulness is getting all popular and this and that and the other thing, and every physician tells their people they should learn to meditate and this and that, but people don't take the time to really explore this like this. So, and for some of you, this is a familiar experience. You know, you have some sense of how a retreat unfolds. You don't know what's going to come up, but you do have a little sense of the retreat. And for some of you in the room, I know that this is a new experience. You're trying something. You got your adventure energy going, and here you are. And some of you might have some trepidation, you know, showing up here. Ooh, what might I be dealing with? And some might feel excitement. Like, wow, I'm having this experience very similar to the Buddha and all the lineage, etc. And wow, you know. And some arriving here might just feel relief, you know. You're back in a familiar refuge, and it feels good. You know what that means for you. But wherever you're coming from, whether you've been doing this a while or new or feeling, you know, excitement or fear or whatever it might be, it's really a timely moment to come on a retreat, both personally and globally. You know, we all know, and I don't have to enumerate the incredible amount of stress this planet is under in almost every direction that we look. Environmentally, relationally, refugees, I mean, it's just on and on. So we come here together at Serenity Ridge, and you had a little orientation about Serenity Ridge and the Bond tradition, etc. And they're kind enough to give us this refuge for a period of time, where we come together and take refuge in this, to practice and undertake the very highest values of awakening and compassionate action also. So, out of that, we begin to get hints and an understanding of what real freedom can be. Freedom that's not hooked up to conditions. That we don't have to have everything just so to feel freedom, to feel peace, to feel happiness. So we come here together, and the work we do very directly is to free our hearts and minds from all those forces that create suffering in ourselves, and by extension, suffering in the world. We're freeing our hearts and minds of greed, fear, hatred, ignorance. And that's where it starts. We are the basic unit of this world. We have families. We live in communities. We're in a nation. We're on a planet. And so work at this level is from the bottom up. Be nice if there's magical leaders that could show up throughout history. And at times there seem to be. But it doesn't seem to stick. We get trapped in the same, as humanity, we get trapped in the same kind of cycles. So this is really bottom-up work. And so this happens naturally as we do this simple practice. What we're doing is we're more and more directly experiencing our lives through the senses, just learning more and more directly what it's like to be a human being. That's what this practice is. There's not some mystical hocus pocus going on here. So you'll gradually understand, as your practice progresses, what it means to be awake, and what it is to live with a heart that's open, and to know when it's closed, and know when it's open, and know the conditions that are at work, and to be in touch with life more and more deeply, but not overwhelmed by it. So neither disconnected nor overwhelmed by our experience. That's the spiritual path that we're learning, that we're walking together. And to cultivate a heart that's more steady. Steady in the face of whatever comes your way. Equally steady both with the challenges that we all face by being born. It's the fine print we didn't read. All the things that we deal with, loss, old age, sickness, death, etc. And all the joys of this life also. So you'll be doing something that this weekend, this week, that people from all cultures, all parts of this planet have felt important to do from time to time. And these particular practices that you'll be exposed to or re-exposed to this week, they've been around and passed down generation to generation to generation for at least 2,500 years. And some of them longer, I'm sure. We're able to trace them back to the Buddha, but they go even beyond there. And so my favorite metaphor, and some of you have heard it, is the coral reef. And I love diving, and I love being on the reefs. And what we know is that it's only the very outer layer of the reef that's alive. The rest of it's built on these exoskeletons of all these little creatures for, in some places, thousands and thousands of years. So here we are, alive, whatever that is. What an amazing, mysterious, crazy thing being alive is. Almost undefinable, or it is undefinable. So here we are, we're at the outer edge of that reef. We're very bright, we're active, we're thinking, we're feeling, we're moving. The sunlight's on us, we're doing our thing, and we are supported by this lineage that goes back and back and back. But we've got our time in the sun. It's brief, but we got it. Here we are. So, like the contemplatives before you, in all contemplatives in all religions and all forms of belief, they stepped out of their ordinary life. And to step more deeply into an aspect of life that's really, it's not about activity, it's not about producing anything, it's not about consuming or maintaining anything. You get fed here, you don't have anything really to do. So you're in this kind of pregnant space for learning. And and you've been driven here, all of you have. You don't want to have your life reduced just to the things necessary to survive and get by. There's a draw that you have into this mystery. What is it? Each of your hearts is stirred in some way by a desire to heal. And we've all got different woundings, and we feel different separations from ourselves and others, etc. And there's a desire for greater openness, greater flow, greater connection. These are driving us here to do these practices. And we're driven for greater understanding. That's just humans at their best. We want to understand. We want to open our heart. We want to heal. So we're going to be practicing these ancient arts together. And as Sharon was alluding to, there's a kind of harmonic that happens when we're all in this room meditating. And those of us that have long practices, we know that there's something different about meditating with a group of people and meditating by yourself. It's like, best metaphor is maybe the sounds in a symphony as they combine create something greater than any one instrument in that symphony. The synthesis greater than the individual note. So by sitting together, literally, we'll be sitting in support of one another. It's mysterious. I don't pretend to understand how that works, but it works. It's powerful and it's supportive. By entering into this stillness together, and when we close tonight, we'll be in silence, there's a great support in that. So I want to share a few things about the retreat and a few things that have been helpful to me along the way that might be useful to you. You have two allies when you come into a retreat. One is the schedule and one is the silence. The schedule we have, and if you choose to follow the schedule, there's a whole executive function of the mind that you can just let go. Oh, I'll sit, I'll walk, I'll eat, I'll sleep. It's pretty simple. You don't have to decide, well, do I need to do this or do that? Or it's like, oh, I'll just give myself over to that and see what happens as an experiment. So the schedule can be an ally. And silence can be a great ally and an offering to everyone around you. And you'll see some people that might have been, they're used to this environment. Maybe they don't do eye contact. And so they look down. It's nothing personal. They're just working their own stuff. So we want to respect everybody's space. The kind of offerings that we can offer them are wishes from our heart that whatever they're working with, serves to awaken them. So silence is an ally. And that also means staying away from your electronics. Simple as that. We've got an agitated culture that feels that we've got to be having something that we're looking at all the time. did a retreat this summer at Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts. We actually did a ceremony where we invited people, and we got it all arranged ahead of time. Should have thought of it this time. We had envelopes, and we had people, if they chose to bring their electronic devices, we'd put them in envelopes with their name on it, and locked it away in the office. And we had a kind of a ritual. They came up and, and we did a whole thing. And people reported, boy, this was hard. It's like, and some people didn't do it, and, and they maybe wish they did, and other people did it and wish they didn't. And, so there's a challenge for you. See if it's possible. So, one quality that sustained me over the years of practice through all the ups and downs of this, and that's the quality of interest. A deep curiosity and willingness to, or a passion even, a passionate willingness to understand what's this heart about, this mind, this body. It's so interesting. So if we can stay in touch with that curiosity, that interest, that really can serve us. The Japanese poet Izumi, 11th century poet, and she says this: "A moon at dawn, solitary meets sky. I knew myself completely, no part left out." A moon at dawn, solitary meets sky. I knew myself completely, no part left out. The little poem just captures the essence of what this practice is about. To know ourselves completely, no part left out. So it's a feeling or an intention that whatever it is that arises, whatever comes up, and boy, there'll be a whole range of experiences that will be arising. The intention is that whatever it is that arises, just let me look at it, let me see it, let me feel it with as little resistance as possible. Learn to accept it even. And so I mentioned it just a moment ago. May whatever arises serve to awaken. May whatever arises serve to awaken. When I look back, if I can even remember that far, when I started meditating, I would judge myself incessantly about this. Oh, I really can't do this. Some things I'm pretty good about, but I'm not so good at this. My mind is too active and crazy, and it's all over the place, and it doesn't calm down, and this is probably something that other people can do, and I can't do it. That I might even be meditatively defective in some way. I'm one of those people. But somewhere along the line, there was a change in my understanding. And I want to share it with you, so it may save you some time and anguish over this. And that's that I finally understood the difficulties were part of the deal, part of the path. And it's not that you're bad or hopeless and you can't do this. You're not doing it right or anything like that. It's just that difficulties are a part of the path. And you can ask any long-time meditator. Now, we don't put this up on the posters where it's like, peace, freedom, relief from suffering, And Buddhism just is, actually, they're pretty good marketing, It's about the relief from suffering. Well, who doesn't want that? And we kind of navigate, that path. And eventually I came around to the point of view that that I'd rather see the difficult parts of my heart and mind than not see them. Because if I had interest in looking, seeing, understanding, and feeling into them, then it actually all becomes workable. There isn't anything necessarily out of the range of workability. And I believe that fully. We have certain limits, all of us, emotionally, physically, of what we can deal with. But this practice trains us, encourages us to deal with more and more with equanimity and with an open heart. And people that have practiced for a while will say, gee, I used to be able to be, or I was freaked out about this, X, Y, or Z, but now I'm not so freaked out about that. I might be freaked out about A, B, and C, but there's a feeling of greater ease with experience, all of it, good, bad, ugly. So, if you're reluctant to see the shadow parts of your mind and heart, then you end up simply acting out your conditioning over and over and over. The awareness is limited in a certain way. There's less choice and there's less freedom. And mostly this is the way the world works. And I certainly know from looking at my own anger, guilt, lust, fears, that it actually takes more energy to keep all that stuff bottled up than it does to summon up a little courage to be with it. So, kind of learning to open our hands a little bit in a more tender, accepting way of our life, our experiences. So this path also can seem really paradoxical at times. And to me, that's part of its endearing beauty. So on one hand, it requires heroic effort, passion, okay? The courage to face the truth, to look at the shadow. And at the same time, there's a totally paradoxical other way of understanding it, and it's a path of surrender. That it isn't about forcing your way through anything. It's a question of surrendering to what is, of opening, of letting be, letting go. The question of how do we actually attend and befriend our experiences? Another aspect of practice that I can't highlight enough is lightness or humor as we do this. You're going to be given instructions as we go along, and you're going to try to find some kind of balance between the appropriate amount of energy that's necessary to kind of stabilize and bring the forces in the heart and mind together, and a lightness of heart that will allow you to experience what's going on, not to resist the experience so much. To learn to flow with it. There's a lightness involved there, a buoyancy, a humor in a way. I mean, you can be very attentive, energetic, careful in what you're doing in this practice. And you can still do it with a light heart and a sense of humor. Quite simply, if you don't find ways to have some fun with this, you're probably not going to stay with it. You very quickly recognize that your mind is shameless. It will actually think anything. And it'll think some of those shameless things over and over again. Why does it do that? But the laughter is the right attitude. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this. So, holding it all lightly with a sense of humor. Even as you have a committed, passionate interest to understand what's going on, just enjoy the show a little bit. You're directly kind of observing a human in all its mystery. This is from Alan Watts. We could say that meditation doesn't have a reason or doesn't have a purpose. In this respect, it's unlike almost all other things we do, except perhaps making music and dancing. When we make music, we don't do it in order to reach a certain point, such as the end of the composition. If that were the purpose of music, then obviously the fastest players would be the best. Also, when we are dancing, we are not aiming to arrive at a particular place on the floor as in a journey. When we dance, the journey itself is the point. As when we play music, the playing itself is the point. And exactly the same thing is true in meditation. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at in the immediate moment. So Alan's reminding us it's really not about trying to get something. It's more about letting go. So it's not so much about something you're going to get while you're here. It's what you're going to leave. It's less like a trip to the mall and more like a trip to the dump. You know that feeling when you've taken stuff to the dump, you've cleaned out the garage or the basement, it's like, and then you worry about the landfill and all this stuff, but there is a moment. A couple of other supportive qualities, and one, of course, is patience. So your heart and mind goes through all these different cycles, one after the other. Sometimes it's really blissful and you think, now I understand everything and it's going to be like this. And then the next moment it's like, yuck, where did these energies come from? And then the next moment it can be kind of joyous or calm or whatever. And then there's boredom and agitation, sleepiness. So patience is required. It's just required. This too shall pass. Whatever is happening is not permanent. Our culture is, as we've noticed, is a want everything now culture. That's the way we roll, And so it seems to be getting more and more challenging in our culture to slow down enough and learn things that take some time. People don't want to do it. Delayed gratification doesn't sell in America. But we also look around and we see some of the great works and the time that it took. The Great Wall of China, the pyramids, learning any skill. And even when I read the biography of Bruce Springsteen, there's one point in there where he was driving his bandmates to insanity, in a sense. They worked on one song for 6 months or something. Jeff probably knows what that song was. I can't remember. But it's every day. Show up and they do this song. And then they come back the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the month, until it was right. So, patience. Patience. Was it born to run? No, it wasn't. Was it really? Oh, God. Okay. But it's true that almost anything can be accomplished if we work patiently and slowly and in a relaxed manner. So that's our practice. Patiently, slowly, relaxed. And out of that, you can truly develop a tremendous power. Great equanimity and a deep understanding. And Ryokan, the 18th century hermit monk, describes it like this. Like the little stream making its way through the mossy crevices, I too quietly turn clear and transparent. Like the little stream making its way through the mossy crevices, I too quietly turn clear and transparent. So patience is one support, and loving kindness is another. And over the years, this one's really hit home to me. I discovered it and rediscovered it at deeper and deeper levels. Is that any of these benefits of this practice are going to accrue more readily and more powerfully in direct relation to the amount of kindness, that you can bring to yourself as you practice. You know. So you'll be reminded of that all week long. Soft, easy, without harshness, without judgment, if that's possible. That's the way that this works. You learn to be gentle with yourself, and then you learn to be more gentle with yourself. So we cultivate the heart, this friendliness to ourselves, friendliness to our experience, to everybody here that will be supporting in our practice. There's a line in an anonymous poem by a samurai in the 13th century. He said, "I make my mind my friend. I make my mind my friend." That's an amazing aspiration. Maybe I'd add, I make my mind and heart my friend. What an accomplishment that would be. Boy, if you could do that in the time that you're here, you get your money's worth tenfold. But you'll see and you'll notice that that's not so easy. That we find ourselves kind of crunching down on ourselves in one way or another. So befriending these heart minds, it's a work in progress. And when we discover that's happening, look at that. Old habits, old reactions that have been put in there over the years, going to take a little time. So the most fundamental aspect of all the Buddha's teachings is that experiences arise when the conditions are appropriate for those experiences to arise. Everything comes out of causes and conditions. And these conditions are constantly changing. And so, for now, maybe just this one time, the conditions have come together for us to be all here together. This may be your last retreat. Certainly is the last retreat in this exact configuration, where the resources, the time, the support of your families, friends, coworkers, whatever it's taken to do this, they've lined up. And what we like to say is conditions are favorable, temporarily. And not many people have this opportunity. They never get this. To just practice becoming aware and waking up. And if you can see it that way, instead of taking it for granted, it's just another thing that you can do over and over again. It may awaken a little fire in you, or spiritual ardency, that this time is important and may not be repeated. And so we practice together, and out of that you cultivate a deeper understanding of yourself. And from that, your general capacity as a human increases. Your capacity to contribute in some important way or manner to the understanding and peace and happiness in this world, that capacity grows through a practice. And so the practice isn't just about you. Yeah, it's about you. But it's about everything, everybody. The results ripple out. We're practicing for this planet and every being on it. So, if you simply act out of conditioned habits of greed and fear and judgment, etc., that's what gets put out in the world. And so we're working to reverse this process, little by little. When even just the beginnings of being able to free your heart and mind through practices like these, it opens the door to compassionate action in the world. You feel it in relationships. You feel it in the field of connection with whoever you're with. And if there's any planet that I know of that could use more compassionate action, I can't think of one. The Earth needs all the help it can get. So, with your deepest aspiration as your unfailing guide and recognition of how important this opportunity is, may the time that you spend here and devote to yourself, to all of us, to this planet, may it bear an abundance of fruit. So, honor you all. Thanks for coming.